Right, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the second webinar through UPNA YPC 2021 committee. We are very excited to have a great expertise for the panelists today. We just request that you put in all your questions in the Q&A, and we will be reading the questions off that. I want to start by introducing our presenter, Dr. Ruba Fahim. Dr. Fahim is a neurologist, epileptologist at Salem Health in Oregon. She did her clinical fellowship in University of Arizona, and she did her neurology residency at University of Arizona Medical Center as well. She's been a clinical stroke research fellow and at Mass General, and prior to that, she was a research associate in Aachen. Some of you may not know that she was the assistant editor of Pakistan Journal of Neurological Sciences. Thank you, Dr. Fahim, for presenting today. Our second presenter is Dr. Syed Reza. He is a clinical associate professor at University of Texas, Houston. He is an internist and by her primary specialty, and now practices as a cardiologist and interventional cardiologist. Dr. Raza joined the group at UT in 2013. He finished his training in Virginia. He finished his fellowship in Virginia Commonwealth University as well. He has multiple board certifications in internal medicine, cardiology, interventional cardiology, nuclear cardiology, cardiac echocardiography, and cardiac CT, and also advanced training in cardiac MRI and vascular ultrasound. So welcome, Dr. Raza. Dr. Noorafshah Khan is associate professor at University of Pittsburgh. She graduated in 1996. She's currently teaching at Mercy Hospital in Pittsburgh and has been teaching since after her graduation. Her academic interests include obesity medicine, general internal medicine, and medical education. We're also excited to have Dr. Abdul Wahid with us. Dr. Wahid is a program director at WellSpan Health for family medicine. Dr. Wahid completed his family medicine residency from Penn State Good Samaritan Hospital. He holds an associate professorship both at Penn State and also the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. He has keen interest in full scope of family medicine, care for our patients, families, research, and scholarship. And he also does a lot of mentoring training for faculty. So welcome everyone. Thank you for your time. We're gonna go ahead and start with Dr. Fahim.
All right, Assalamu alaikum. I'm very glad to be here, and thank you so much for that introduction. I'd like to start by sharing a little bit about my own journey. Let's see. Yeah, so a little trip down memory lane. As you guys know, I'm now a neurologist. I've done my fellowship in epilepsy from the University of Arizona. I'm a fairly new graduate compared to our very esteemed panel today. But the journey here has not exactly been the smoothest. And that's why I like to do what I do, primarily because I've been down this road. So I went to medical school in Pakistan at Aachen, which, as you all know, is a very reputable college with very high standards. And so back in the day, it was very, it was very unanimous that everyone would get 99s because double digits were how the scores were reported at the time for the USMLE. However, I did not get that unanimous 99 in step one. And looking back, of course, maybe I should have prepared better. Maybe I should have spent more time. But I didn't get that in step one, and that was very depressing. And so also, I guess, what happened was, because I didn't get that score, that high score, you feel like everything's closing in. You don't have a whole lot of options when you ask for help. You're turned down because people think that you have limitations or flaws. They call it flaws in your CV. So regardless, though, I was very passionate about doing neurology, and I was very passionate about subspecializing in epilepsy. And So I did what I had to do. I took step two. I gathered some clinical experience, and I applied after a year of graduating. And so, sure, I didn't have that unanimous 99, but I had high hopes that perhaps I was a fresh graduate, something miraculous would happen. And unfortunately, I did not receive a whole lot of interview calls. I didn't have very many contacts at the time. So the first year I applied, I had one interview in neurology. It was an advanced position. And so if any of you are familiar with advanced positions, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later as well, what happens is, you have categorical positions in a lot of fields, and in some more specialized fields, you have advanced positions. So for categorical, you match for the 4 or 3 years of residency altogether. You don't have to apply separately for your prelim intern year. But for advanced positions, you do have to apply separately. And it's technically kind of like a double match, because you have to match into the prelim spot as well as the actual specialty that you're applying to. And so, some specialties that do make use of the advanced category are dermatology, ophthalmology, radiology, things like that. And neurology is also one of them. So I had one interview in advanced neurology. It was at a very good, very well-renowned program. They're known very well for their neurosurgery, especially. It was the Barrows Neurological Institute up in Phoenix, and they had never matched an IMG before. So, when I went there on very short notice in February, so it was the last week that interviews were being done, I went there, I interviewed. Everybody else there was either an American medical graduate, or if they weren't American medical graduates, they didn't have visa issues like I did, being a Pakistani. And also they had very prolific sort of CVs. So, knowing that you have subpar scores, knowing that you're from Pakistan, it's a little intimidating. And so, of course, I was intimidated. And I actually asked the program director, I said, hey, I've come out here on such short notice. Do I even stand a chance? Do you think that this is worth it? And he said that, I shouldn't worry, because the fact that I was there meant that I stood a chance. So of course I was questioning myself, as I guess anyone would in this situation. I didn't expect to match, but this program director reassured me that nearing rank list submission time, he usually calls people that he matches in the top 20 category. So if he gets a call, if I get a call from him, that's reason enough to think that he's ranking me very high. So anyway, I went back home. I was praying, I was hoping, didn't expect to get a call from him, but a day before rank list submission time, I did get a call, and it was the program director, and he asked me if I remembered what he had said. And I said I did. And so he's like, well, that's why I'm calling. So what ended up happening is I did match. Then on that one interview, that one program that was advanced, I did match. But unfortunately, because I didn't have a prelim, I had to go through SOAP. And back in the day, SOAP was a little bit more tricky, because not many people understood it. Of course, in my case, there was the visa limitation, also not knowing a whole lot of people. And myself, I knew that my scores weren't super high. So I knew that even if I asked people to vouch for me, they would be a little bit reluctant. So I tried as best I could. I went through SOAP. I didn't match. because this is legally, you're legally bound by this contract of the NRMP match. I was still obligated to try and find an unmatched position, which I continue to do. And, a lot of people told me, well, you should wait till July because a lot of people don't get visas and then they're scrambling to find spots. Residency programs are. So you may actually find a position. Just hang on till July. And so I did. And of course, in that process, I was applying to a bunch of research programs for the heck of it because I needed a backup. All this time, I didn't take step 3. I didn't have time to do any more electives. So my CV had not changed very much, even if I was going to apply in a couple months. So I went ahead and I applied, and by this time, I had realized that you're supposed to put your ego aside. You know, it's hard. It's very hard because you're in such a vulnerable position, but you have to put it aside and you have to accept what your flaws are, what, the setbacks are. You have to understand that. And so I did. And I reached out to anybody I could. That's part of the reason I got involved with UPNA as well, because I reached out to Dr. Faisal Kosa. And although he could not help me in that scenario, later on, he would reach out to me and then ask me to become a part of YPC and co-chair for them as well. So which happened much later. Fortunately for me, somebody got to know that I was obviously very interested in neurology. And so I was contacted by the Mass General Vice Chair, Dr. Lee Schwam, to join his department as a stroke research fellow. Initially, I had to turn it down because I was still obligated by my commitment with NRMP. But because I didn't find a position, he had to, he reached out to me again. I accepted the offer. I started doing research, and then I applied again. And so this time I only applied to categorical programs. I didn't apply to advanced programs. We have a very sort of strained relationship, and I don't like advanced programs because of this little, instance in my life. So I only applied to categorical, I guess because I had MGH on my CV now. This time I had 4 interviews, even though I didn't ask for letters from MGH. I didn't have any extra research to present. I had only been there for a month. And alhamdulillah, I ended up matching at a categorical program at the University of Arizona in Tucson. So Allah ka shukr, it worked out very well. But this road has not been easy. And that's why I do what I do, because I feel like this is my way of paying back and helping those who may need a little bit. So enough about me. I want you guys to make note of this link. It has a lot of FAQs on there. It has the whole SOAP schedule on there. I think everybody should familiarize themselves with this website because it has such useful information. But coming to some of my, some of the things that I think are do's and don'ts for this. Firstly, I would urge you to research all unfilled programs. There has usually been a trend with unfilled programs in various disciplines. So please make your own lists. Please start doing that. I mean, you should have already ideally been doing that since we only have about 10 days left. But please try to do that. If you're going to be applying, if you apply to internal medicine categorical or family medicine or anything like that, and if it's only categorical programs that you apply to, and God forbid you go unmatched, all program lists will open up to you during SOAP. So if you are planning on matching into, just basically getting in and getting into peds or family medicine or anything like that, please prepare your individualized personal statements right now. You are able to upload them onto ERAS, and so I would strongly urge you to do that. I know that this says try to find contacts now. There is 10, I mean, we still have 10 days, so you can still try. But, the sooner the better. By finding contacts, I mean, reach out to your alumni, reach out to people that you might know through your clinical experience. If you've worked somewhere in some capacity, maybe they have contacts and you should reach out to them. choose wisely where to apply as an IMG, and that's why researching these unfilled programs is going to be important. If you do a Google search, there are a list of unmatched programs that will pop up for the last few years. I would suggest in the last 5 years, whatever programs have gone unmatched, please try to make note of them. And why I say choose wisely where to apply as an IMG is because if you know that this place is not going to sponsor a visa, or they haven't taken IMGs in the past, I would advise against applying there. Save that application for another program. There is also a portal called the Match a Resident. I would suggest getting on there. I believe till a couple years ago, the fee was $40. It might have changed. I don't know what the recent ones are, but it has very useful information as far as programs are concerned, as far as their contact information is concerned. And so, and they also occasionally advertise unmatched positions after SOAP is over. So, so that might be something to look into. Please, these are just, basic things, but have your phone and computer charged, ready to go. Clear up your schedule. This is going to be a very intense week. It starts from a Monday, the 15th, and it goes on till Friday. So I know that you guys, a lot of you are in Pakistan or abroad. So it's going to be nighttime for you. So just be prepared. If you're already in North America and it's during the day, and if you're working in some capacity as a physician's assistant or, in some other capacity for volunteer work or something, just be aware that you have to devote a lot of your day to this process. So be ready for that. And of course, by now you should know that you, whether you're eligible or not, March 3rd, I believe, was rank order submission, was a submission deadline this year. By that time, you should have known. And so what happens is if you apply through ERAS, even if you didn't have any interviews, you automatically qualify for SOAP and you are eligible. If for some reason you didn't apply through ERAS, but you are able to now that you are ECFMG certified or, whatnot, you can still pay, I believe it's $99 and participate in SOAP, even though you didn't apply through ERAS. So those are some things that you should look into. Now, what I have here is the categorical breakdown of what programs and what their labels mean. Because when the lists open up, they're going to show the prelim positions, the advanced positions, the categoricals, all of them together. Excuse me. So please make sure that you know these categories. For instance, C would mean categorical. They're primary care categoricals, which are M programs. The prelims are only the first year, which is the intern year. So for instance, if you do match into an advanced position, you know that you can only apply to the prelim programs or transitional years, which would also pop up this way. So just familiarize yourself with these. If you look at the code is going to be 140 or whatever the code is, and then the letter indicates what category it is and what you're going to be applying to. There are a lot of programs that will have categorical unmatched positions, but they will also have advanced. So please be sure you know what you're applying to. All residency candidates, like I said earlier, will need to be registered with NRMP by the rank order list deadline, which has already passed, in order to be eligible for SOAP. Some of the don'ts, which I think we should focus on, is, and they're very important this year. They're imperative, actually, because I've been doing this for the past few years, and I know that there have been some changes, particularly this year. So please don't contact anyone during SOAP. Don't contact the programs. Don't contact their administrators. Don't contact residents during their in their programs, unless of course you trust them and you know that they may vouch for you. Now, the reason why I say this is because in the last few years, they have never specified. They've always said you're not supposed to make contact with the program until they make contact with you. But never have they said that you are not allowed to contact people in our program, such as residents, or have somebody vouch for you as well. So this is an added stipulation, which was added this year. I know that in the past, during Soap Week, and of course, because of COVID, things are different now. There hasn't even been, an in-person interview trail, but people would show up in person. So if you're, for instance, a lot of programs in New York and New Jersey will go unmatched, and that's just the way it is because there are so many programs. And so people living in the vicinity would actually show up in person, and try to get in touch with the administrator. The reason why this is bad is because I know people personally who have been blacklisted from NRMP and from further matches because they did this. And so you don't want to do that. I mean, sure, it may have not worked out this year, it may not, but then you don't want to blacklist yourself for the future. So please don't do that, because that would be a serious red flag. Don't make the mistake of sending the incorrect information. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've had emails where they haven't addressed me by the correct name. They don't even know if I'm a he or a she. So please make sure you have those kind of facts straight. If you are going to be contacting, somebody, don't specifically ask them to vouch for you on your behalf, because you have to remember that when they vouch for you, they are putting their names on the line as well. So unless, of course, you know somebody and you've built that relationship over months or years or whatever, please don't ask them to vouch for you. If you already know somebody and you know that you're going to be participating in soap because you didn't get any interviews this time, it may be good to have them have like a heads up or give them a heads up. But I wouldn't specifically use that terminology, hey, can you vouch for me during soap? Because, you, I know, are in that position where you're a little desperate and you're trying your very best. And we all feel that way. I know how it feels. But people do tend to use that against you as well. So please don't hurt yourself by doing that. When soap actually occurs, and I'm going to go through the schedule so you'll know how it works, please don't hurry in accepting an offer. When they have rounds and cycles, you have 2 hours to accept an offer. During those 2 hours, the program cannot make an offer to any other place, to any other candidate, and they can't get rid of the offer that they've extended you either. So they can't take it back. So at least for that 2 hour period, both you and the program have time. And so please don't hurry in accepting an offer, especially if you are made a couple of different offers. But also be vigilant and be aware that this year is unlike many others. We may have a lot of people going into soap this year just because, going through the interview process has been weird as well. We know that more American medical graduates were offered interviews this time. And so I know that programs are a little bit reluctant as well. They don't want to deal with the hassle of visas and all of that. So if they are extending an offer, don't hurry into accepting it, but please be vigilant and please do your research and know what it is that you're going to be accepting if you are accepting it. So that's the other thing. Now coming to the schedule. So the 15th is match. I wouldn't call it match day because that would be much later. But the 15th is when programs and candidates will get to know at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 10:30 rather, whether they've matched or not. And then by 12 is when you can start applying. So when I say that have your personal statements ready, I want all of this information to be uploaded into ERAS prior to this 12 p.m. on March 15th, so that everything is ready to go and all you have to do is click through it. This is, a software, so you have to understand there are going to be computer glitches. Things might get stuck. There are going to be technical issues. इसीलिए, पहले से अगर आप prepare करें, तो it's going to be a lot easier for you, and you won't be worrying or scrambling at the last minute. So 16th goal, this process continues. What happens is the programs may extend an invitation to speak to you via Zoom or a phone call, whatever mode they want to speak to you in. Sometimes they don't even do that and they extend offers, but usually they initiate some kind of contact. So the first round of soap is going to be on the 17th. You will receive your offer or your cycle of offers at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, you have 2 hours to either accept or decline it. And there are 45 applications that you can send out on the 15th. So I would highly advise you to make use of those applications right away. I don't think that you should wait for the next cycle to apply or safeguard, to safeguard your chances. Basically, don't save up on applications thinking that I may have a shot later. You have to understand this is a first come, first serve basis. If programs, because they are only a limited number of programs and positions that are offered. And so if somebody else accepts and they're able to review their application before yours, they might get that offer, and then that offer will not exist and that position will not exist. So please make use of those 45 applications right away on the 15th and send them out. Don't wait till later. Now, again, there's this cycle, and then there's the second cycle, which is going to occur, and then finally the third round, which is on the 18th, and the fourth round, which is later that day. On the 18th, SOAP will end at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and what happens is these positions are now for that limited time of frame between the 18th and the 19th, which is actual match day. The computer is going to gather all that data, and they're going to release the list of now unmatched positions. There will still be positions that remain, and they're going to release those, and those will be available till May 1st. And at that point, once SOAP has ended and once match week has ended, you are free to contact these programs yourself without actually waiting to hear from them. You can call them, you can email them, you can send your application in, whatever. But basically, that will remain open till the 1st of May. उसके बाद ये होता है कि या तो positions रह जाती हैं तो वो Google पे आपको मिल जाएंगी या नहीं मिलेंगी, या फिर there are various portals such as Resident Swap or Match a Resident or Find a Resident, जहाँ they advertise these positions. So that's basically a summary of what happens. And so I'm sure we can go on to questions in a little bit, but I thank you. I wish you the very, very best. And as I always say, may the force be with you all, inshallah. I think Dr. Raza is going to be talking about interviews, so that's going to give us some insight as to how you guys need to conduct yourselves too.
Thank you, Dr. Fahim. That was very comprehensive, and we already have a lot of questions, which we'll go over. We'll move on to Dr. Raza. He's going to talk briefly about interview, because whether SOAP or not, that's an important aspect of matching as well. So Dr. Raza, floor is yours.
Sure. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. So thanks a lot, Dr. Nuchit, for the kind introduction and the opportunity here, and great presentation, Dr. Fahim. It's going to be a hard act to follow. I'll try my best. I've been involved with this our program for the last 3 years now. I've had some experience interviewing candidates for the last 3 years. I've had some coaching on how to be a good interviewer. So I just wanted to share some slides and some of my insights on how to interview well during your SOAP interviews. First of all, the red flags, you need to be familiar with the red flags in your application. First few questions may very well be from those red flags, so you better and have good explanation of these special circumstances. Then the best way to approach the interview would be to actually be on the other side and figure out what a good interviewer is trying to do. They are trying to establish rapport, evaluate some interpersonal skills. They do try to ask some behavior-based questions and assess character and personality. How do you establish rapport? Basically, the first few questions, they're based off of some of your application. They may ask you about your research project. They may ask some simple questions. Why did you choose our program, or the specific specialty, and so forth? And those are just, I would call some warm-up questions. So if you've mentioned something in your CV and they're using it as a starting point, make sure you know it really well, because it really makes for a very bad start. If they inquire something about a CV as a warm-up question, then you really get stumped right there. So remember, these are just the starting questions, this warm-up questions to get to know you a little bit. So be very careful with your CV and the things they may use to get the conversation started. Now, how do you evaluate some further interpersonal skills and stress management and so forth? Some of the common questions we do ask are challenges of being the junior most member of the team. What kind of people you find the most difficult to work with, and describing an unpleasant experience on the wards and how you dealt with it. These are some of the common questions which are asked to assess your skills in stress management and so forth. So be familiar with those questions. Also, some of the tricky ones are some behavior-based questions, like how do you disagree with your superior, and how do you handle it, and how do you handle frustration when faced with a difficult patient or difficult family. Those are some of the questions which they assess your behavior. And then lastly, these are the questions where you can shine potentially, assessing your personality and character. How have you changed in the last 4 or 5 years of med school? What are you most proud of, and what differentiates you from other candidates? And some of you may have some life experiences which may stand out. I've interviewed people who were first ones to go to college from their family. Some of them did not speak any English until they were 15 and 16. So all those things are your chances to shine during the interviews. So just make sure you understand those questions, what the interviewer is asking you, and try to do your best. Uh, do you need to ask questions? Absolutely. You should ask good, intelligent questions. I've mentioned this actually as a last question, but I think that was the most important question I was asked this year. How has COVID-19 impacted your training program? So that's a very good question to ask. And there's some other questions which you should ask, at least 3 to 4 good questions to show your interest in the program. And of course, that will also tell them you've researched the program you've applied to. So it's always good to have 3 to 4 questions ready to ask the interviewer. And that's pretty much it from me. So I can leave some room for question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rosa. Okay, so lots of questions, and what I'm going to try to do is try to put them in a theme, and then I'll try to direct it towards particular people. So I think one of the common questions we have, a couple of people have asked, is maybe more specificity in the do's and don'ts of SOAP. And I think they're very interested in Dr. Abdul Wahid's perspective as a program director. So we'll start with that, and then Dr. Fahim, I'll come to you to add anything. So Dr. Wahid, do you have any tips from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good morning, good evening, or whatever time of the day that you're participating from. It's kind of variable. I can see that, a full spectrum. I just want to say a couple of things before I address the specific question. 2 things that you need to think about is Aruba Fahim went over all the steps meticulously and gave tremendous valuable information. But you have to think there are the programs in the match are going to be of 2 kinds. One, those who will panic. Second, who won't panic. And I say this because there's a perspective from program directors and that I see in the listserv, and also speaking to some programs and even my personal experience in one of the programs in the past. The programs who won't panic are the ones who are planning on SOAP. They actually have very stricter criteria. There is a specific type of candidates they're looking for, and they would prefer going unfilled over matching with especially the kind of applicant. And so that's why you see some of the highly competitive fields, they sometimes go unmatched more than some of the traditionally perceived non-competitive in comparison. And I'll give you example, internal medicine versus med-peds. Med-peds is considered to be relatively more competitive than medicine, internal medicine, or pediatrics. But if you look at the spectrum, medicine pediatrics goes more unfilled. And there's a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons is a lot of the program directors, they actually plan on SOAPing. And the second thing I want to talk about is knowing the evolution of the SOAP process. And that will give us a segue into the real question. The SOAP has evolved over a period of time from the actual match. Back in the day when I matched, Scramble was the first thing that was introduced by that year, or maybe a couple of years before me, but Scramble was something very new. So you would apply to the match. If you go unmatched, then there's a period they would say, 3 or 4 days, they would call it Scramble before the match system would close. And there was sort of a closed information which was available. Before Scramble, programs were on their own. They would just, match happened. Now you go find. And Scramble provided them with a platform where the closed information was available for the unmatched applicants and unfilled programs. Now, what used to happen was it was really a scramble. People would just show up. People would call the programs and programs would go crazy. It was like a frenzy. And slowly program directors started advocating for a more structured approach. And that structured approach has evolved over a period of time. And that has given us the SOAP as we know today. And last year or 2 years ago, there has been a lot of pressure from program director associations in each specialty to make it even more structured. There are some program directors who have actually, in one of the meetings I was in a session, we were talking, and one program director said SOAP is the best thing that ever happened to his program because they were really looking for only US fourth years. They would not take anyone else. And every year they would, they would match with other people. And that included, osteopathic candidates or, graduates from US medical schools or IMGs, and they didn't want that. So 1 year they decided okay, we would rather go into SOAP, and they call it diamonds in the rough. And they see any fourth year MD and they'll catch them. And now they have developed planned perspective. So for example, one of the program directors I know in family medicine actually uses this week as a team building exercise for the faculty because he blocks all the faculty. It's well planned, and they go for match, and they're like, we know that we're going to match only 3 or 4 out of the 8. And the other 3 to 5, we're going to get in the SOAP. So they block all faculty schedules. They sit in one hallway, and they have all the phones. Everyone is ready, and all the applications that are going to come at 3 p.m., they're going to assign, okay, you take the first 15, I'll take 15 to 30, you take 30 to 50, so on and so forth. And then they start screening the applications, and they start picking the phone and making schedules of appointments and interviews. And in the end, from the program perspective, if I have, for example, 5 unfilled positions, I can rank only five. You can rank 45 programs as a candidate, but I can rank only 5. And it keeps on until I fill all of those. I can keep putting in the ranks, as many ranks as I have open position. So I just want to correct one more thing on Aruba's slide. There was one slide where it said that you do not hurry in accepting the position. This year, my understanding is, I may be incorrect. I listened to the webinar from Match to the PDs and to the programs, and they said you will not be able to accept actually positions out of, so more structure. So you'll have to wait until, it happens ting. The first cycle, the program is going to rank applicants are going to rank the programs, and then the ting happens for the first cycle. That's when you discover outside, it's not allowed to go outside of an accepting and offering. So that's one thing I'll have to confirm, and you can go and confirm on the webpage as well, but that's what my understanding from reading the, frankly speaking, I'm not planning on SOAPing very hard because I think I'll match with, I have excellent people on my match, on my rank order list. And if it comes, we'll do it. But I have blocked all of my schedule for the whole week. And as a couple of my faculty and my associate PD, we're blocked and to be ready. So that's do's and don'ts. I would suggest that not accepting offer outside of the cycle, because that could put someone in trouble as far as I understand, but check and confirm. That's number one. Number two, I would suggest do not call the programs. You never know how the program is going to react. There are some programs who would actually report you to an RMP, and then you will be left without match in the future. I would suggest that you don't ask the people to go on your behalf and knock at program director's door, unless and until somebody knows program director very closely and you have confidence that that person is actually going to go and program director is not going to mind. The whole philosophy is that the program directors don't want to get annoyed and disturbed, because I told you that, you know, this program, one example, they are in one hallway, they have a very coordinated effort, they don't want people coming and disrupting. So disruption is that they really dislike. I know one program director who was at a tertiary care medical center attached with the medical school, and the medical school dean tried to call the program director saying, you know, we have like 6 of these students of ours who went unmatched and 2 have applied to your program, you know, take them kind of. And the program director did not attend dean's call. And now you can think about, you know, if you know, my boss is calling me and I don't attend the call, that takes a lot of guts. But, you know, they just, because they were the program that I'm referring you to, they were planning on soaping. So those are some of the do's and don'ts I would emphasize, but I would stop rambling.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul-Wahid. Dr. Fahim, there are a lot of questions. Quite a few people would like to know if there's an advantage or disadvantage to being in Pakistan versus North America. If someone had an option, where should they be? And if they didn't have an option, how do we go about SOAP while we're in Pakistan?
So actually, I know of a lot of people who have participated in SOAPs, you know, in Pakistan. Of course, this was in previous years when the whole COVID situation didn't exist, but they had their Pakistani numbers on file. They had their Pakistani addresses. Of course, they were aware that, you know, with the time difference, they had to stay up late and be ready to take that call. Usually they call, so they will, even if it's an international number, they will call. And sometimes they might email you first through ERAS to say, you know, you should be expecting a call from us within the next hour or something so that you're prepared. And so now, since the whole interview trail was done via Zoom, essentially, I'm pretty sure they're going to be open to that as well. So at this year, I really don't think pehle kaha jata tha ki yes, there is a benefit, because you were allowed to go and, you know, see programs and maybe contact them directly as well. And just say, Dr. Wahid keh rahe the ki there were people just showing up and it was like that. This year, you're not allowed to do that, and you can't do that. And I also don't think that in the next week, you guys can maybe travel given the restrictions and stuff. So, you know, it's fine. Even if you're in Pakistan or elsewhere, just make sure you yourself are aware of the time difference, but I think it should be fine.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm sure most of you have participated in interviews for SOAP. We'll start with Dr. Raza. There's quite a few questions about, are the interviews for SOAP conducted in any different way, or are they similar to before the SOAP?
So, you know, as Dr. Abdul-Wahid mentioned, you know, there are 2 kind of programs, right? Some of them are panicking. So those interviews are a little bit different. And there's some programs which are planning to be in SOAP. For us, being a new program, the first year we were panicking. The second year we planned. So I've been through both, and it's a little bit different for people who are using the SOAP in a controlled fashion, and they know how to interview. So for all practical reasons, the interviews are fairly structured. They'll call. It may not be as long as a regular interview, but you know, they will ask you majority of the questions you will get asked otherwise. So don't plan out just spending a few minutes. They will go through your application. They will, because they want to match someone they can live with for the next 3 years. So they do their due diligence.
That makes sense, and especially if it's someone who has not interviewed in the past. it would be very important for them. Dr. Khan, do you have any input for the SOAP interviews?
Yes, Dr. Raza had some really nice points on his slides about what we're looking for when we're interviewing candidates. It's really about, is this someone that we can work with over the next 3 years? Will they be a good fit for our program? Some common mistakes that I see happening when I'm interviewing candidates is be really careful about, when you do ask a question, don't be in a rush. Don't start interrupting before you actually gotten your answer. Present yourself. At least for my program, they have discouraged live interviews. So if you're in Pakistan, that's definitely not an issue in this COVID-19 impacted cycle. But make sure you're in a well-lit space. Have good energy. Have an appropriate speed of your speech. Really try your best not to come across as anxious. And exactly what Dr. Raza said, the interview is really just to, weed out. I was actually at a webinar about this, and it's just basically to weed out people who are maybe not going to be a good fit. And it's really, really hard to tell that from a 15-20-minute interview process. So, so it's even the small things can really matter. How you engage with the person in front of you, whether you use nonverbal cues, are you interested? And if you actually know something about the program itself, and that really helps. So if you can highlight something about that particular program that you think you would that would be of note, and a reason why you have applied to that particular program. Be prepared to explain gaps in your CV or any other deficiencies, because if you are in the SOAP process and you haven't matched and there are some big gaps in your CV, or if there's some other deficiency, that you will get questions about that.
Thank you, Dr.
I want
Khan.
to add two things to that if there's
Sure.
time.
Please shoot.
I would suggest that you should think in the time frame of 10 to 20-minute interview. And I am guessing that most programs will use some kind of a video platform. If there is a way that you can add to your personal statement at the end when you put your name in, your Skype ID, your Zoom ID, if you have a personal Zoom ID, you can add that there. If you have a Pakistani number, then that could be helpful. And emphasizing the point that Ruba had in her slide in terms of really personalizing the personal statement to the program, and look for, there was a question in there where somebody was saying, how do you know what are these 45 programs out of the unfilled from last year? You want to look at their web pages. Just go and use these 15 days for your advantage, and look at what kind of candidates do they take. I mean, there could be, again, the second type of programs who don't take IMGs, and they use SOAP for that purpose, actually, to avoid IMGs. So you just pay attention to that. And then last thing is, I'll give you an example of my program. My program, as I don't plan on going into SOAP, because I hope we don't end up in SOAP, but we will have 2 interviews, one with program director and one with either a faculty or a resident. And we are planning our calendar. We're going to see, people. This might vary depending upon number of unfilled positions, but at least 2 interviews, could be more. And we will make it structured. And there are a lot of programs who do that. Those who have had experience in the past, either going unmatched, or their faculty or their program director participated in the match in the past.
No, I'll just add one additional point. Make sure you know which programs don't offer visas, because it's an absolute waste of your application to apply to programs where they don't offer visas and you do need visas. So make sure you do your homework well.
And another thing I'd like to add, because Dr. Vahid had mentioned that maybe you can put a one-liner at the end of your personal statement. If you do match into an advanced position, let's say, or if you do match into a prelim position, and so far, you know, your whole application is based on a different specialty, then your personal statement should reflect that. If you've matched into an advanced position, please state that in your prelim personal statement, so that they are aware that you're already matched, because you actually get more preference for prelim positions if you've already matched and are partially matched. So just be aware of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. There are quite a few questions that deviate a little bit from SOAP, but since we have a little time, I'm going to go ahead and ask those. By the way, for the process, a couple of people have asked about what is the actual process. I would urge you to please go to the website that Dr. Fahim has pointed out and go through the website really well, understand your eligibility, what the process is, and how to apply for it. No matter what we tell you, we will still tell you to do that. So please go ahead and do that. A couple of questions regarding from people whose year of graduations are further out or may have had difficulties because of pandemic, and how should they approach the SOAP process if different at all. And we can start with Dr. Wahid, and we
I'll
can
take
go
a stab.
around. Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, not directly related here, but I'll tell you. People ask me like, what is the magic number where you'll match and you don't have to prepare for SOAP? No. Let me tell you, there's a magic number from the program perspective. People used to talk about 10 for each position, and you're safe. And I've seen people, you know, programs still going unfilled. And I've seen, you know, programs who match way less than that. And that really depends upon program's history. There is something called rank to fill, RFL number that is reported by the NRMP every year. And it changes and jumps in programs. So there is no magic number. I've seen people matching with one single interview. In the previous years, I had somebody in my top 10 list who matched with us. And afterwards, I discovered that resident had only one interview, but that resident was like such a good fit in the program that was on our top 10 list. So just hang on tight. A number of interviews has some correlation, but there's no magical number from applicant perspective that I know. I would suggest anybody who's in the match should plan on SOAPing. Or prepare, not plan on, prepare. And you should have a team of people. It's not a single person sport. You should have a lot of people, at least two people, your spouse, your friend, your brother, sister, your father, mother. Have someone, you know, team up with you who's going to manage your, you know, email, your schedule, you know, and putting interviews, who might be able to, you know, kind of put a holding space while you're doing interview with one program so that it's put on another one. So, you know, sort of have a team of people help you in one way or the other. Your personal statements, if you collect, you know, have a number of the versions ready. And then now I'm going back to the year of graduation. Year of graduation is variable. I mean, in the SOAP programs who take people, graduates, a year of graduation is usually an IMG issue. Most of the time. There's very rarely, you know, US grads go into research track and whatnot, but that's a different beast altogether. So I'm not going to address that. Let's talk about IMG. So if it is an IMG issue, you should be looking for programs that actually, you know, usually have history of taking IMGs. It's usually on their webpage categorically. They would say they take IMG and they would have put on their criteria. Just follow their criteria. If someone says we take only, so read between the lines. And how do you read between the lines? We generally take within 5 years, right? Versus we take only 5 years. We take less than 5 years. So generally means there is a little bit of room, and they might have a little more holistic approach. And in the SOAP, they might consider people more than 5 years. Rather, if they say only within 5 years of graduation, then most likely they're not going to consider your application. So don't waste time. And these are the programs that you don't want to disrupt and annoy by sending someone on your behalf. unless you know someone who probably is very close to program director and core faculty. If there is someone who they're not going to get offended. For example, if one of my core faculty comes and tells me about a candidate, I'm not going to get offended. But if there are several people, you know, who just come out of the street and try to disrupt my process, I'm not going to like that either. So, so year of graduation, you have to look at the web page. There's no magical number for everyone. It depends upon situation. Family medicine, I've said this on other platforms, and I'll say this again. Family medicine, most programs are looking for your commitment to family medicine. They're very touchy in terms of, you know, someone coming in, especially like in SOAP, there will really be screening. That you don't want to get someone with internal medicine subspecialty interest who's going to spend a year and then jump off somewhere else and use the program for jumping board. And then being in SOAP is not that bad. Even going unfilled, even after the SOAP is not bad, and getting some out of match, rather having a PGY2 position open. That is many times very painful for programs. So just think about those things. If you're applying to family medicine, so your application should reflect in some way that you're interested in family medicine. Your personal statement should reflect that, and should be ready to explain if you apply to another specialty during match, you went unmatched, and why you're considering family medicine right now, and what you would do with that, and not get frustrated after matching to family medicine, because after family medicine, you're not going to be able to be Dr. Raza, a cardiologist who's going to go cath.
Thank you, Dr. Wahid. Anyone else have any guidance for people who are a few years out of graduation?
So, you know, I think that's where your homework comes into play. You need to do your homework before you apply. There are certain programs who are very strict in their criteria. I am in one such program. You know, that's the HCA programs in general. They have this guidance from the corporate where they will not entertain people, you know, more than 2 years older and so forth. So you have to be a bit careful. Most of the information is out there. Some programs are very strict, but you know, I don't think there's a magic number for year of graduation either. I mean, I've seen people 10, 15 years older and they're matched. So just really is a luck factor comes into play.
Okay, thank you. A couple of questions regarding categorical versus preliminary positions for SOAP. I didn't know if Dr. Fahim, since you'd been through this, if you can make some comments about which ones are recommended for the SOAP or not, and how to make those decisions.
So again, you know, if you applied to a categorical spot and you went unmatched, which means that you didn't match into advanced, you basically didn't match into anything, then all the lists of programs will open up to you. So all unfilled programs, whether they're from your specialty or not, will open up to you. However, if you went partially matched like I did, you will only have access to the prelim positions or the transitional first year positions. So if you're in that position, you're only looking for the first year spot. And that's why specifying that in your personal statement is going to be a huge benefit, because programs, when they're reviewing your application, they know that you have already matched for the following year into your specialty. You're just looking for that first year spot. Especially if it's in the same state or in the vicinity of the program that you have matched in. Now, of course, you won't know that till Friday, but you may have an idea based on your own rank list where you could have potentially matched, since it says that you matched into an advanced position. For those people who have not matched at all, I think now the problem is visa restrictions, because as far as I know, ECFMG has put a limit as to how many times you can do an intern year. तो पहले ये कहा जाता था कि prelim, even though your goal is to get into a categorical spot, US system में घुसने के लिए बस आप prelim भी अगर आप मिल जाए तो आप घुस जाएं, कर लें, and then you can always repeat that year the following year when you apply for a categorical spot. Unfortunately, I don't think ECFMG is allowing that anymore.
That is correct.
Yeah, so इसलिए I wouldn't say कि unless you have a definitive goal, yeah, you are planning on getting into an advanced program, even outside the match cycle, prelims को फिर preference ना दें, categorical spots को first preference दें to apply. और फिर अगर if you have applications remaining या something, तो फिर it would always be advisable to do a prelim in IM or a transitional year program, because that still opens up your avenues for other specialties later. You know, you can still cycle into a PGY2 position अगर कोई unfilled निकलती है. मगर please don't think कि हम फिर से repeat कर लेंगे, prelim अभी कर लेते हैं, फिर अगले साल फिर categorical. That's not going to be possible if you need a visa.
Thank you, Dr. Fahim. Dr. Khan, you have a comment?
No, I think that's a really important point. Actually, sometimes just the fact that someone has already done a year somewhere else has been a negative in their application for us.
I see. So in fact, one of the residents reached out to me a few months ago and was in this same situation where she's in a prelim position and would like to do neurology and is looking for a PGY2 position and cannot repeat PGY1 because of the new rules. So you must be aware of all the rules. So as far as these personal statements and letter of recommendations are concerned, for the SOAP process, do candidates upload separate personal statements for each program, or is it similar to before the SOAP where you assign your personal statement and letters to the programs? So are they writing individual personal statements for each program?
No. So basically, the personal statements that you had already uploaded are still accessible to you, and you can place them in whatever application you're going to be submitting. Now, you also have room to add to your ERAS application during this time. And that is why I say that if you want to update your personal statement, if there are changes, if you're, if you're in that position where you may have maybe matching into an advanced position and you just want to add that one line, you can upload those documents abhi se, so you can do that right now, so that, us waqt when the system is overloaded, koi masla na ho. So those things are still accessible to you. You assign kaun se letters aapne lagane apni kaun si application mein. Of course, your dean's letter and everything's remain standard, but as far as statements are concerned and letters are concerned, they will remain accessible to you, and you choose it just like you would jab aap initially ERAS ke liye apply kar rahe the.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to get back to Dr. Waheed. Just a quick question. You had mentioned that if you have a close faculty and they talk to you, it's okay. So let's say we have a student and they have done an elective with one of your faculty and now are applying for SOAP. Is it okay for them to reach out to that faculty and then that faculty talks to you or vouches for them, or is that actually against the rules? Now, stick to the rules part, not what you would actually do.
It's against the rules.
Okay.
And there is risk. There is always a risk. But I think, if you work with somebody and you made a good impression and that person gave you a letter, I would think that that person would know the program and would not do anything that's going to disturb the program. And I hope you can actually judge the capacity of that person's judgment as well. Like, this person's relationship within the actual core and administrative portion of the program. And if this person is going to make a good impression going and talking about you. But directly speaking, it is against the rules of any kind of contact this year is against the rules. But if someone rotated with us and we spot that person's application as unfilled, as unmatched applicant, I would probably be the first person looking at that, and I would be disheartened a little bit that person didn't match with us in the first place, unless like that person was do not rank,
right,
in the place for some reason.
I agree with that. That would be disheartening, but I think it needs to be clarified that during SOAP, you should not contact the program in any capacity, whether it's through faculty, through the program director, through the coordinator. I would even recommend not going through the residents. They're very, very strict rules. I would just stick to that. And then I think this is a, it seems like a naive question, but I think it's a very reasonable question. Before the SOAP, we do get in touch with residents and we do show our interest. should we even specify that if you have positions and so to consider us? Should that be something that they should mention? I would think that you shouldn't need to, but what do you guys think?
I think that should be okay.
Yeah.
This quiet period, showing your interest should be okay.
Okay. And then again, Dr. Fahim, for the categorical versus prelim, there are certain specialties that are very competitive. And in general, we apply for prelim, for example, even for neurology or for general surgery. So when you're applying for SO, I would think that for those competitive specialties, the same approach would be used. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, excellent. I think we have covered most of the questions. All the questions will be copied. I've taken down notes of a couple of things that we will be posting on our webpage. We are going to put some match violating questions during the interviews that we are not allowed to ask candidates. So you guys are aware. We'll put up the link to the eligibility criteria and a few other resources that Dr. Fahim pointed out. I think this year it may actually go in our favor because both the programs and candidates will be struggling. The pandemic has made it difficult, may have made it difficult at both ends. So I don't think you all should be worried about being in Pakistan and not being able to be here because that's going to be the norm this year. And a lot of programs rely on international medical graduates, and we want to fill the position. We don't want the positions to go unfilled, except for, you don't want somebody who's just using that specialty as a stepping stone to get into the system. So be prepared, be confident, do your homework, and inshallah, everything will go well. And we're here to help you. We are all available to answer questions. If you have any more questions beyond this webinar, please send your questions to ypc@appna.org. And we'll be happy to direct them to Dr. Fahim, Dr. Raza, Dr. Waheed, and Dr. Khan. Please look out for any links that might be posted on the webpage in the next couple of days. We hope that this recording goes well, and if everything is okay, then we will post our webinar on our webpage as well. So thank you, Dr. Fahim, Dr. Raza, Dr. Khan, and Dr. Waheed for your time. I know it's late in the US. We really appreciate you taking out time away from your families for this webinar. And we hope that the people who joined found it useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.